Oh, Miss Irwin, could you come, please? I don't have my phone, but if you have staff, give me 5 minutes to think about it. I know you got to leave. You got to leave. You begin whenever you're ready, Ms. Irwin.
All right, thank you very much, and good morning, or almost afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. AB 2524. How's this? All right. Whatever you need, Mr. Quirk. AB 2524 helps bring California's criminal justice data collection and accessibility into the 21st century. This bill requires the Department of Justice to display criminal justice data collected from local law enforcement agencies on the Open Justice Data portal rather than on a static annual paper report required by a law as written in 1955. The Open Justice Data Portal is a public website that has interactive data charts and written analysis, as well as an open data platform in which researchers, students, the press, and law enforcement can download raw data and do their own studies. Not only will Open Justice have crime data submitted by local law enforcement, it will also enable public safety and policymakers to cross-reference crime statistics with demographic data such as gender, educational attainment, and household income. This additional information will give us an accurate, three-dimensional view of what is going on the ground in California. Currently, 60% of law enforcement agencies still submit their criminal justice data to the Department of Justice on paper cards, and then the DOJ enters that information into a computer system. AB 2524 standardizes reporting by requiring law enforcement to submit their data electronically by 2018. By having all law enforcement agencies submit data electronically, we can save taxpayer money by eliminating redundancies and streamlining the data submission process for both law enforcement and Department of Justice. And I just want to emphasize there are no new reporting requirements. We are just requiring that the data is submitted electronically. And I think we have Robbie here from the AG's office.
Yes, good morning. Robbie Sumner with Attorney General Kamala Harris's office. It's been a long hearing already, so I'll try to be brief, but just a word of warning. I've kind of engaged on this bill in what the AG would refer to as wonking out, because I've actually looked into the history of the Department of Justice's crime statistical reporting. Obviously, on a number of bills today, we've talked about the value of data to drive public policy and the need to have something that kind of transcends anecdote when we set policies for the entire state. This actually dates back to in 1897 is when the Bureau of Criminal Identification was created under what was then the Department of Penology. And I know I'm all the way back in 1897, so I'll fast track a bit. We'll catch up 100 years real quick. When the Department of Justice took that over, it created a new Bureau of Criminal Statistics with the idea that, this data that we were collecting on all of these felons and criminals could actually be used statistically to help set public policy. So when we created this Bureau of Criminal Justice Statistics shortly after the Department of Justice was first created, we decided that, there should be a formal reporting to the legislature and the governor to be able to set policy based on that statistical information. So actually in 1955, there was the original requirement that the Department of Justice should distribute a printed annual report based on information that was collected from locals using paper cards and forms provided by the department. And I brought props. I actually have the original from the 1950s crime reports that were submitted to the legislature. And this is something that our Criminal Justice Statistics Center currently does, and it's been expanded a number of times since then, obviously. We have actually over a dozen different mandated data sets that we collect from over 1,000 criminal justice agencies throughout California. We collect and publish information on arrests, on complaints against officers, anti-reproductive rights crimes, arson, and law enforcement officers that are killed or assaulted in the line of duty. And obviously last year we had several large new data measures that were added to what we collect at the local level, and the Attorney General is committed to making sure that that's implemented in a way that is of value to both the public and the legislature. And the reason why I kind of go through this entire history is because I think that using the phrase bringing California into the 21st century is often a very redundant trope, but I think that when we talk about the buckets of paper that get submitted to DOJ every year. I think it makes a lot of sense to democratize and electronicize a lot of that information for more value.
Thank you. Are there any witnesses, in support? Name and...
Sorry, Chair. Jonathan Feldman of the California Police Chiefs Association. We are supportive of this bill, and we are working with the Department of Justice on a few minor points. We want to make sure that the reporting is done on a schedule that we can all are all capable of hitting, and we are also want to make sure that some of the rural departments that right now are still reporting crime statistics on pen and paper have the funding to implement this. So, thank you.
Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition?
Move the bill.
Mr. Chair and members, Corey Salzillo here on behalf of the California State Sheriff's Association. Regrettably, in opposition to the bill, we are working with the author and her staff and the proponents of this measure. We remain concerned that, by their own admission, over 60% of the agencies in the state don't report electronically. That is going to require some change in protocol or methods, whether it's a web-based submission system or the acquisition of new software, whether it's going to require server space. And to the point that Mr. Feldman made, there are going to be costs to this mandate. We're happy to work with the author moving forward. We understand that there are some questions about how frequently the information is reported. We know the bill doesn't change that. We look forward to working on that issue. But at this time, we do need to express our opposition based on the fact that there are a lot of deficiencies in as much as there are smaller and rural agencies who don't possess the capacity currently, as we understand it, to report. We also understand that there are upcoming changes for reporting as it regards submissions to the federal government. We'd like to see if there's a way we can work it out such that we're not changing the system now and then changing it again in a number of years. So with that, we are opposed, but happy to work with the author. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any witnesses in opposition? Someone speak? Okay. Any questions from committee members? You can finish.
I will finish. And this is just a good government bill that brings criminal justice data into the 21st century, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
And the chair's recommending aye vote. I do believe you will work with the opponents to try to make sure this isn't costly to everyone, and I think with technology and different ways we can figure this out. We can make sure it doesn't become cost prohibitive on
We
local
are committed to working with the sheriffs.
Okay, thank you.
And chiefs.
And chiefs. Madam Secretary.
AB 2524, the motion is due pass to appropriations. Jones Sawyer.
Aye.
Jones Sawyer, aye. Melendez. Lackey. Lackey, aye. Lopez. Lopez, aye. Lowe. Lowe, aye. Quirk.
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Santiago. Santiago, aye.
Thanks. Mr. Gallagher, AB 2340. Item number 21. I'm sorry, Mr. Gallagher. Begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Members, there have been, there are, and there will be people who step across that campus line to do harm to people. There's stalkers, there's people who intend to abuse, hurt, and in some cases even kill their victims. When they do so, they don't care that it's a gun-free school. They don't care that there's a restraining order against them. they intend to do harm. And right now there have been, there are, and there will be victims of domestic violence who are trying to attend school. They're university students who are trying to attend school. They're teachers who have been victimized and have a restraining order against their abuser. They're mothers taking their kids to school, and you have a domestic violence restraining order against their abuser. And under current law, and I just think this was an oversight from last year, we're going to make those victims felons when they go onto campus and they choose to conceal carry a weapon to protect themselves. And that's why I'm bringing you AB 2340, which would allow victims of domestic violence who hold a protective order and who have a valid CCW license to carry concealed weapons onto school or college campuses. I understand that there was a provision in SB 707 that would allow for persons to obtain a note from the school district superintendent granting permission for victims with protective orders to carry CCWs on school and college campuses. However, if you're familiar with domestic violence and those issues, there's not always a whole lot of time. That's why we grant restraining orders with very little notice and very little time, because we know that person needs protection immediately. So it's not always very easy to go and get the permission from a superintendent, and how long will that take? But even more important for this committee, and I think for our policy, it should not be up to a third party's discretion how a woman, a victim of domestic violence, chooses to protect herself. In granting a protective order, the state of California recognizes that individual has a legitimate fear for their life and that they should have the right to protect themselves at any times. Domestic violence victims are some of the most vulnerable people in our community. According to the Department of Justice, in 2014 alone, there were 156,000 domestic violence-related calls reported in California. And I have to address a letter that was given to you by the Brady campaign, because this kind of language, I think, should not be allowed to stand up and stand alone. And I just want to read a couple excerpts from it. First of all, in the third paragraph, it says, under AB 2340, a person who obtained a CCW permit in a rural county could be carrying a loaded gun on campus in an urban setting. I take great offense to that as someone raised in a rural county. And yeah, I wasn't taught to fear guns, but I was taught to respect them. And I was taught to use them safely and responsibly. But according to this letter, we got to worry about those rural folks. Can't have those rural folks going into urban settings because they're just going to start shooting people. That kind of fear-mongering, needs to stop. And this bill has nothing. This bill has to do with domestic violence victims. But here we are, trying to paint us as a bunch of hicks, right? Well, I don't appreciate it. And here's the one that's even more insulting. In the last paragraph, if a person feels threatened to the point where she or he feels the need to have a gun for a potential shootout, then that person should not be on school grounds or college campuses. I'm sorry, we're not, what are we talking about? Painting all women as Annie Oakleys who are going to go onto campus and start shooting willy-nilly? No, these are people who have a legitimate fear for their life and who have been trained and have gotten a CCW license and who know how to use that gun responsibly and safely. But this kind of language right here is inexcusable, and it shouldn't be allowed to stand in the public sector, and it's going to be called out. That's what this place is for, is to call out this kind of stuff. And if they do come up and testify, I think they owe an apology to domestic violence victims, because that's not what this bill is about. But I do want to turn it over to my first witness, Brandy Schertz, Huffmaster, because we need to educate today, and I want people to understand, Brandy is she's not a victim of domestic violence, but she has been a victim of an attack, and as someone who decided to protect herself by concealed carrying a firearm. And that, I want you to understand that is a rational, reasoned decision. It's not an emotional decision. And she's a responsible, safe citizen who's exercising her right to protect herself. And I want you guys to be able to see that as we're thinking about this policy and what's the right thing for victims.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brandy Schertz Huffmaster. Almost 5 years ago, I found myself in a terrifying predicament. While I was shopping alone in a Target store, a man followed me, stalked me, and pursued me with intent of harm as I exited the store. Fortunately, I'd taken notice of him while I was in the store, so I was on guard as I walked to my car. I was not cowering. I stood tall. I walked with authority. I looked as though I could throw a screaming rant without effort, and I scanned the parking lot thoroughly from side to side. At about the halfway point between the store and my car, I turned to scan the parking lot behind me. And that is when I saw the same man coming up behind me at a very quick pace. And when his eyes met mine, he cracked a stun gun off that he was carrying in his hand. And I knew instantly that my life was in jeopardy. In a split second, I knew I wasn't going to allow him to take me to a second and more secluded location. So I made the swift decision to head back towards the direction of the store, where I knew there would be more witnesses. So instead of running from my would-be attacker, instead, I turned around and I charged him. And as I did this, and in all honesty, I'm really not even sure why it came to my mind, but I took my right hand and I pulled it to my hip as if I had a gun holstered there. And I yelled at him loudly and with fierce authority, "I will kill you." And in that instant, he broke his quick pace towards me and he diverted to the left into a sea of parked cars. When I got into my car and I locked myself inside, I was in complete shock that this had happened to me. I'd always believed that it was people who acted like victims that were the ones that were chosen to be that got victimized. I'd been trained that if I appeared alert, aware, and confident, that a would-be attacker would see me as too much of a hassle and move along to someone else who was distracted or perhaps mousy and insecure in their demeanor. In other words, the perfect victim. I was not the stereotypical perfect victim, yet I was still chosen, and that rattled me to my core. I was very foolish to believe that I would never be targeted as a victim just because I did not act like one. Before I got back home that night, I was determined on one thing, that I would purchase a handgun and I would be trained to learn to shoot it efficiently, and I would never again be alone without it. I realized in that instant, as I charged towards him yelling with my hand drawn to my hip, he made the decision to stop the pursuit because he thought it was possible that I was going to shoot him. What was horrifying to me was I had nothing. I had no gun, no pepper spray, and had he decided to call my bluff that evening, things could have ended very differently for me. I've been a CCW holder for over 4 years now, and I cannot imagine my life without having that right, especially as a woman. I'm calm and I'm confident, and I know that I'm in control of my own safety. I don't have to pretend to be tough, and I don't have to be fearful when I'm out of my comfort zone. A woman should not have to feel like an underdog when it comes to her safety and her well-being. And while I'm extremely appreciative and grateful for my Second Amendment rights, I'm appalled that there are bills that continue to restrict my right to protect myself. For example, current law does not allow me to conceal carry in places such as college campuses where so many assaults on women take place. It should be every woman's right to feel safe and secure in any environment she must encounter and to be able to protect herself if that need arises. The thought of someone impeding on my right to protect myself is very unsettling. Sometimes as women, we are alone, and it is only ourselves that can take that action to fight for our very own life. And I believe it is an injustice to take that kind of right away from anyone. AB 2340 is an important step in the right direction. This bill would allow those who have known threats against them and wish to protect themselves to be able to conceal carry their weapons on campus. Thank you for listening to my story, and I urge you to support this important legislation.
Thank you. You have two witnesses, 2 minutes apiece, or you have one?
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Roy Griffith with the California Rifle and Pistol Association, speaking on behalf and support of this bill. I'm speaking to you as somebody who just recently retired last month after 32 years in law enforcement. So public safety and public protection is something that I've taken paramount my entire life. This bill allows folks that have already been recognized to be a threat to have somebody protect them. The provisions in the bill just allow somebody who has already been recognized by the local community to have a right to carry a concealed weapon to protect themselves. The folks that, in my experience, that have restraining orders against them are in fact predators. And they know, they follow their prey, and they recognize their prey weaknesses, which would be when they're going to school or dropping somebody off at school. They know their patterns, and it's exact kind of situation where they would take it upon themselves to take advantage of somebody when they're most vulnerable. So for that reason, I completely support this bill 100%.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Sam Paredes, representing Gun Owners of California, in strong support of this bill. I don't know what else really needs to be said to justify the importance of this bill and the right that women have and should have, not just women, but anybody who's under a predator, chased by a predator, followed, should have to protect themselves. The policy of this legislature should be to give folks a chance, give them an opportunity. And I think that some of the information that is used to justify this measure is wholly, amazingly incorrect and corrupt information. The fact that since 2007, Violence Policy Center reported that CCW holders were involved in 29 mass shootings, homicides, accidental shootings, and all of this stuff. CCW, not here in California, sir. Not here in California. Here in California, CCW holders are rarely ever in any sort of a bad, unlawful situation or even have an accident. They have proven to be the most responsible citizens in the state of California. And I think that the Gun Owners of California thinks that although we opposed SB 707, we think it's wrong-headed. We need to give this ability to those people that have a justified court-issued restraining order that is supposed to protect them.
Thank you. Witnesses in support, name and organization.
Mr. Chairman, members committee, Ed Worthy, National Rifle Association, in support.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Kathy Lynch, representing Outdoor Sportsmen's Coalition of California, Safari Club International, and California Sportsmen's Lobby, all in support.
Craig DeLuz with Firearms Policy Coalition in support.
Matt Gray with Taxpayers for Improving Public Safety and Victims Foundation in support.
Thank you. Are there any witnesses in opposition? Here we go. 2 witnesses, 2 minutes apiece.
Good morning. I'm Amanda Wilcox here on behalf of the 27 chapters, California chapters of the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence. We're in opposition to this bill, of course, as a gun violence prevention organization. But for me, there is a personal element to this policy in that I was on a school board for 14 years, including 10 years as president in Nevada County, which is a rural county. And, as a former school board member, I feel very strongly that the educational institution, each individual institution, needs to be able to set their own parameters on who they would allow onto campus with a firearm. The quote about rural people getting CCWs, if you look at the whole paragraph, my point was that there is a variance, we all know this, of sheriffs within the state in terms of the threshold for which they issue a CCW. And there is a variance. And what may be appropriate and fine in Shasta County isn't on a college campus at UC Berkeley or UCLA, where you have many students, young students, depression issues, substance abuse issues, that kind of thing. So I think that points to the importance of the discretion by school authorities, which we support. One of the reasons that is so important is that we're not just talking about staff members who may have a CCW in this case, but it could be a parent volunteering in a first grade classroom who, because they hold a protective order, is also armed as a volunteer in that classroom. In that case, I think it probably is to the benefit of that institution that person not be on campus with the gun. If they are threatened by the subject of the order and they come on campus, there could be a very bad situation that would be avoided otherwise. So I think this is the local control is critical to this. And also, I'd just like to note that I don't see any domestic violence prevention organization listed in support of this bill. In general, I believe their policy is that they're at greater risk when people arm themselves for protection. So I urge you to oppose this bill.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is John Lovell, and I'm here on behalf of the California College and University Police Chiefs Association. We were the sponsors of Senate Bill 707 that was enacted last year that restricted or prohibited the unfettered access by people with concealed weapon permits on campuses. We sponsored that bill for the very good reason that active shooter incidents take place disproportionately in campus environments. If you look at the national statistics, you'll get an active shooter incident on a campus about once every 8 days. And so we are very concerned about the unfettered access of people with weapons on campuses. This bill will, I think, undermine the achievement of last year. First of all, the standards by which someone gets a concealed weapon permit in this state vary widely throughout the state. But once issued and in possession of a restraining order, and remember, restraining orders are typically mutual in California now. In possession of a restraining order, they have unfettered access. If you have a fact situation where someone feels they are in jeopardy, they have the ability to go to the school authority or to the designee of the school authority. For example, in many campuses, the college and university police entity is the one who makes that determination. This bill will undermine a major achievement of this last year. We respectfully ask that you reject the bill, keeping in mind that persons who do possess a restraining order and a CCW are not without the option of going to the campus and saying, this is my circumstance. Let the campus control their environment.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I have to make a presentation, but I'll be right back.
All right. So others who are in opposition, name, position, and organization only.
Ari Freilich, staff attorney at the Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence and Opposition. If I may note very briefly, existing law already allows a person...
We are running late. Sorry.
Jill Rice with the California Federation of Teachers in Opposition.
Nick Wilcox on behalf of the Nevada County and Sacramento Valley chapters of the Brady Campaign in Opposition.
Linnea Ashley, Youth Alive, Oakland, California.
Jim Lindberg on behalf of the Friends Committee on Legislation of California, opposed.
Thank you. Comments from the members or questions? Mr. Gallagher, you may close.
Mr. Chairman, members, I would just ask you to really search your hearts on this one. This isn't about undermining a policy. I think it's about making it a whole lot better and about protecting domestic violence victims who have an absolute right to protect themselves. And you have the ability to answer this question today. Does a domestic violence victim have the right to protect themselves on a college campus, where they work? Do they have that right to protect themselves or not? And you can answer that by your vote today. And I would respectfully ask that you vote aye.
So I'll state for the chair is opposed to this because he believes, and I believe, that this is a matter that should be left to the school superintendent. This bill was just passed last year. It went into effect this January. We have no indications that it that there are any problems caused by it. If that changes, we can certainly come back and look at it later. But at the current time, there's no reason to upend a bill that we just passed. With that being said, has there been a motion? No. I'll move the bill. Moved and seconded. Madam Secretary, what is the motion? Do pass. And, why did I? Oh, well, it's fine. As I said, I'm voting no, but we're putting the vote up because there wasn't anyone else who was going to do it. So I do think you're entitled to a vote as opposed to just having it go unanswered. But I will be voting no. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
AB 2340, Jones Sawyer, Melendez, Lackey, Lackey, aye. Lopez, Lopez, aye. Lowe, Lowe, no. Quirk,
No.
Quirk, no. Santiago, Santiago, no.
All right, the bill does not pass. Oh, I thought we had 4 no votes. Lowe, no? Oh, no. Oh, you had 9. I'm sorry. All right, so it's on call. Thank you.